So, Waking the Feminists came out of nowhere at the end of October 2015. It was essentially the last day of October. The National Theatre, the Abbey, announced its programme for 2016, which of course was the centenary year. And I was sitting in my studio, which I had at the time on Cork Street, looking at Facebook, doing other work, clearly, and saw the announcements come out. And because I work in theatre, obviously it was something interesting to me to see what was going on. So I looked down the list of the productions, and actually what jumped out at me originally was that there were very few women's names in amongst the directors. So I went in and counted up how many there were. And out of the 10 productions, there were 3 of them directed by women. And then I realised actually there was even fewer women writers' names mentioned, and out of the 10 productions, 1 of them was written by a woman. And I suppose at the time, it wasn't that unusual. It's still not really that unusual in a lot of theatre organisations for this kind of programming, unbalanced programming.
Sorry to interrupt you, Lian. Can everyone hear Lian?
Can you hear me enough?
No.
Oh, okay. I can. Okay, now can you hear me?
Yay.
Great, okay. I'm not going to go backwards. I'll just keep going. Yeah, I suppose while seeing this kind of discrepancy between male artists and female artists in programmes wasn't unusual. A lot of my friends and I would have had these kind of conversations in private, in pubs, rolling our eyes. And I was at a point where I just felt I was quite tired, and I was a little bit... I was at a moment, I suppose, in my life where I was feeling a little like, well, if everything goes tits up, excuse the expression, I can just go work in a bar in the south of France. Like, I don't really care. So I felt like I didn't want to just have this conversation with friends of mine again in a pub. So I started writing on Facebook. And the post that I put on Facebook had this instant reaction, really enormous instant reaction. And over the following 2 weeks, I spent a lot of time at my laptop ferrying all these reactions and discussions and testimonies that hundreds of women were writing up about their experiences in Irish theatre. I started ferrying those between Twitter and Facebook to try and make them a little bit more public. Very quickly, like I said, hundreds of people started having a conversation, and it became very clear that it wasn't just the National Theatre that was the centre of the problem, but that we were talking about a gender bias, a gender imbalance across the theatre industry. And what happened very quickly within those 2 weeks, so basically I posted on a Thursday. By the following Thursday, I had already written to the National Theatre saying that we, whoever we was, we needed the use of the space to have some kind of public meeting. And by the following Thursday, we had a public meeting. So everything happened phenomenally quickly. And there was a huge group of women, mostly women, some men as well, who rode in and just worked like absolutely crazy, with no sense of ego, no sense of ownership. Everybody wanted to make something that was going to change our theatre, our national theatre, but more than just our theatre, our community. So what I'll do is, if Grace wants to show, there's a little video just about that first event where we took over the Abbey Theatre, and there were loads of news cameras and there was a lot of media coverage there. So this is a little video that actually the Irish Times made, but it just gives you a little sense of the atmosphere, I suppose, on the day.
I really think that the time has come for everybody to look and examine and ask the question, why is it that so many women artists, creative women in the theatre, feel marginalised and excluded?
I hope that it will spark a lot of conversations and a lot of organisations looking to the way they practice and changing the way they practice. I hope it's the start of that.
An amazing buzz, isn't there? Like, and some incredible women here. Like, the faces. There's just really, really wonderful people all supporting each other.
It's a conversation we've all been having in private and smaller sectors, trying to make smaller change, and now finally it's reached a very big public forum, and I think there's a lot of exciting things to come.
Yeah.
It's just supporting women in theatre and women in the industry in general, and it's just amazing when everybody comes together. You realise that the kind of strength that's here.
A great result today will be equal access to storytelling in all our theatres, and that's what's going to happen because everybody wants it. It's the right time now.
I have never been directed by a woman in 27 years. I have done one play by a woman, a French woman, that was adapted by a man. Other than that, zero. I have never worked with a female sound designer. I have worked with one lighting designer that was female. I have worked with one lighting technician. No sound technicians, ever. I have worked on so many productions. Once I've worked with a male stage manager. Other than that, they're all female. They're statistics, they're just bald facts. How much talent have we lost to chauvinism? How much talent have we lost to sexism? Why were we offered a debate? Why aren't we being offered an apology? Because if any institution, let alone a national theatre, something that's funded by the public, anything was homophobic or racist, they'd be shot down. But sexism is still being considered a petty crime.
We call on the Abbey as our national theatre to lead the way in establishing equality for women artists. Our 3 campaign objectives are a sustained policy for inclusion with an action plan and measurable results, equal championing and advancement of women artists, and economic parity for all working in the theatre. Thank you. So you get a little sense of the energy that was happening at the time. Just to give you a little context, that was the first time I'd stood on the National Theatre stage. Well, I'd been there for a rehearsal the day before, but it was also more or less the first time I'd spoken publicly. I wasn't a campaigner. I wasn't an activist. I would have considered myself a feminist, I think. I don't know if I would have ever really said it out loud. And I wasn't entirely sure that I could have given you a definition of what feminism was. So for me, this suddenly being catapulted into the centre of what was this enormous movement that I felt I wasn't leading. You know, it was being very much led by all the people around me, but particularly the media needed a single person to be able to identify and talk to. I became that person, which was terrifying. But I suppose I've always in my life felt that when something needs to be done, if you're in any way capable of doing it, you have a bit of a, sorry, this is slightly confusing with the sound, you have a bit of a moral obligation, I think, to step into doing something if you feel something needs to be changed. So I felt that moral obligation, and I kind of sucked up the terror and learned how to speak publicly and learned how to talk to media and so on. And from the energy of those weeks, a group of us, a very sort of disparate group of people who were freelancers and people working professionally in theatre, got together and realised we had this power and that we had the attention of the media, particularly because we were doing a lot of things like getting celebrities to send us little tweets, photographs, and Meryl Streep was one of them. And if you ever want the media to pay attention to you, Meryl Streep is your ticket. So we suddenly had this power, and we thought, well, we have to use it. We have to find a way of using it. So the group of us got together, decided very quickly, okay, we'll try working on this for a year. And we did. And we tried to find the best use of that power by going to the place where we thought it would make the most impact, have the most impact. And for us, that was the funders, and it was the boards of the biggest organisations. because we felt that if they were to change, they would have a ripple effect throughout the entire community. It's an enormous topic to cover in my 10 minutes, but essentially it made a really big shift in Irish theatre community. And because of that shift, not just in kind of practical steps, like the Abbey has introduced very practical steps and practical kind of policies around the way that they do their work, and other theatre companies are following suit. But there's been a change in kind of the way that people talk about gender and talk about women in the theatre world. Because of this big shift, I think particularly other creative communities took a lot of energy from that. And what I'm seeing, what I feel like Waking the Feminists did was we kind of rode on a wave. I feel like the last few years there's been a wave of social change in Ireland that we're still riding on. So from the marriage equality referendum, I feel Waking the Feminists was able to take some of that energy and some of that positivity and channel it in the direction that we needed it to go. And other people have been able to take some of Waking the Feminists' energy and channel it in the direction they need to go. And then obviously some of us are now involved in the Repeal the 8th campaign. So again, for me, it's about taking the power and the energy and your experience and channeling it into something that you really can believe in and stand behind. That's an enormous topic to cover very quickly. There you go. I'll pass it on.